Do you see a big contrast between Filipino immigrants and American-born Filipinos?
Oh yeah.
Like what?
Well, for example, again, one of the reasons why we changed our club's name
Mm-hmm.
was because of that very real condition. We used to be called Phil Barcata
Mm-hmm.
for the longest time. In the last several years, we decided to change it to Filipino Barcata because we knew. I think it's a very real thing that there's an isolation, there's a divide. Filipino Americans and Filipino immigrants kind of operate in kind of different cliques,
Mm-hmm.
which I think to a certain degree is kind of what you need to do initially if you want to get by. You group up with people
Mm-hmm.
of similar experiences and similar interests, um, and that's okay initially.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you're really trying to build a larger community that's supportive of one another, we also have to understand that there's a problem behind that. That we have a united identity as being Filipinos.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things that we stress in my organization now is to understand that we are all, whether we are Filipino Americans born here or not, that we have a history and an identity that's rooted in the migrant experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We may not be people that have immigrated here,
Mm-hmm.
but if you trace down your family line, you are a product of the migrant experience.
Yeah.
And so it gives you a little bit more of a clearer calling that you need to be actively like build those relationships with
Mm-hmm.
migrant families and migrant communities, because that is your family and that is your history and that is your experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is problematic when people that move here or are disconnected from the homeland intentionally like remove themselves from the homeland and disassociate themselves from what happens back home. Um, because I think it pulls you further and further away from from the identity and the history that defines who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to the fact that those Asian American Studies classes like really set me on my path and really made me find who I was. Um, and we shouldn't just rely on college to do that for us. I think if we build more supportive communities around migrant families, we can start to build that identity from the very get-go
Mm-hmm.
and start to do that at a younger age and build more and strengthen communities that are able to empower themselves to defend the issues, to address the issues that affect people here
Yeah.
and back home.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's links, there's interconnecting links between the stuff that happens back home in the Philippines and the stuff that happens here.
What do you think are the positives living in the U.S. as a Filipino,
Positives. Well,
and the negatives too?
okay. Um, Positives is I mean, obviously there's it's diverse here,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, I think that's a great kind of experience to have, to know that, you know, we call America the melting pot. We're able to see kind of like a rich, diverse experience of people of multiple backgrounds around us, and you get to see a sense of what that diversity looks like. I think that's a great experience to have in America. I also think like in America, though it's tough to be an organizer and can be unsafe at times, exerting our rights here in America, that I feel like may not be so much of a privilege back home. I think people organize just as much as we do here, and in the Philippines are killed.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different condition there.
Yeah. For sure.
Here, you know, that stuff happens too, but it's we have more leverage to kind of speak our mind.
Mhm.
That's a benefit. I think, you know, being having the types of education um, that helps you to understand kind of a global framework. Um, you know, having ethnic studies classes here in this country are great because they give you kind of a much more broader viewpoint
Yeah.
of the world.